Good morning. My name is Joe Pelle. I'm the Boulder County Sheriff. We are continuing to make incredible progress in regards to the evacuation of people from this catastrophe. I have to tell you, the response from the federal government and the state government has been overwhelming at this point. We have an incredible amount of support. We have hundreds of rescuers from a number of states here now assisting us. We have a large number of helicopters and air support, which is in fact and unfortunately the only way to execute many of these rescues that are occurring. If you saw the footage last night and you watched through the night, you know that hundreds of people have been evacuated by air to our municipal airport and then taken by bus to a shelter. The information about the total number of people that have currently been evacuated or rescued, I don't have in my hand because that information is being kept in about 10 different places right now at all those shelters and check-ins and at the heliport. We're in the process of trying to consolidate that information and get you some real accurate information about numbers. The intense operation in the air and on the ground will continue today at a level I've never seen to get people inserted and into those areas that are otherwise impassable or unreachable. There's been some incredible stories. We rescued a young couple yesterday from Lyons. The young lady's pregnant. Her due date is tomorrow. We got her out of Lyons. We got her to a home in Longmont, and her water broke last night. And so there's some personal stories coming out of this that make all of this very, very rewarding. I'm going to introduce you to Dan Dallas. He's our Type 2 Incident Commander from the Rocky Mountain Incident Management Team. Dan has some more information about what assets are here on the ground and what are coming. And then once he's done, the two of us will take questions about what's occurring in our county operationally. Once he's done, then the county commissioner will speak. So, Dan?
Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Dan Dallas. I'm the incident commander for Rocky Mountain Incident Command Team, Team B. And unfortunately, or fortunately, but we've been here before. Normally, we work quite a bit on fire, but on fire incidents, but we also are an all-hazard team, and so we're here to help with the flood. To kind of quickly summarize what we do, I just summarize it all down. We work, number one, to bring order to a chaotic situation. Number two, we work really hard to bring the affected people. That includes the sheriff's office, not only the infrastructure, the emergency services, all those type of people, but certainly the people, and in particular the people that have been impacted by the flood. We want to bring them back to normal as quickly as possible. As far as to give you a little briefing on what's going on today, the sheriff touched on it, but we're very much concentrating today on life safety, search and rescue, getting people out that are affected that need to come out, evacuations, things like that. As the sheriff mentioned, that includes a whole bunch of aircraft. Right now we have about 12 aviation assets that we're working with. We anticipate about 15 by the end of the day. They had a great day yesterday, as the sheriff mentioned, and we anticipate having good flying weather today to do the same thing. So we're looking at what I call a very large air show today to pull off some of the evacuations and also support some of the isolated communities with just really basic necessities, food, water, things like that. As far as people brought to bear, we have about 400 people right now, give or take, that are working on the incident. We anticipate that may well double today based on the orders that we've placed. We're working a couple different things as far as you folks go with the media. We've got some staging set up at the Incident Command Post, which is up at the airport, and we'll be coordinating some efforts to meet with citizens from the communities impacted in the near future. So stand by for that, but we're looking forward to setting up some meetings so we can get the news out to people in an effective manner. And then the last thing is we'll try and, one of the things, these aircraft that are coming in, I mentioned today, what we have mostly today is military aircraft, National Guard, things like that. We're also bringing in some civilian aircraft to do some reconnaissance. And what we need to do is help the county get a real awareness of what they've really got. Because again, roads roads have been flooded out, they're not passable, and so we're working to get some reconnaissance flights going. And with that, we'll look to get some footage for you folks, aircraft taken from the aircraft, so you can see the scope of what's really going on. Because access, just like it hasn't been available to us and to the sheriff's office because we've been cut off, the same thing's going on with you folks. You can't get up and really see the size and scale and scope of this. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the sheriff. We're available to answer any questions, either one of us.
Dan and I'll take operational questions about what's occurring, if you have any.
What is the main concern for you at your concerns?
Yes?
Do you have any numbers now on unaccounted for?
The list, last I knew, was up to 172. I want to emphasize a few things about that list. Those people are unaccounted for. They're not necessarily missing. These are people that friends or family cannot get a hold of. We're assuming that some of them are still stranded. We're assuming that some of them made their way out and simply haven't contacted us or friends and family to get pulled off the list. We're assuming that there may be further loss of life or injuries. We have to assume that. I hope and pray that's not the case, but given the devastation in some of those closed canyons, it's certainly a high probability. What I hope is that by the time we're done, that list is very small and that we are able to account for everybody. We're working hard today to try to mine all the information we've gotten from the shelters, the heliport, the evacuation sites, and make sure we're cross-checking every list, pulling people off. We are also beginning to be able to access some areas by ATV and foot, and we're going to be specifically checking specific addresses that we have from friends and loved ones as we can to try to narrow the size of that list as well. Do you have a question?
Where are you finding the biggest issue or the toughest access? Is it just one area that's tougher than the other, or is it widespread?
Boy, I wish there were one area that were tough to access. The problem with this event is that it's affected every drainage and every road in the county that goes west. And so, you know, it's a sinking feeling when you realize that if someone above, or if someone in the peak-to-peak area calls 911, we are not going to be able to help them. That's a very difficult position as a sheriff, as a government official, to be in, but that's been the reality the last several days. Now we're making some great progress. County Roads is starting to punch through in places. They're working hard. I think we may be able to hopefully restore that access road to that Ballarat Calwood School area and get those kids out, we think, hopefully today on a bus rather than chopper them out. Sunshine Canyon now has some access. That's currently our only east-west access, and it's not a great road, as you know. Boulder Canyon now, we have a very narrow passage, but we are able to get emergency vehicles up Boulder Canyon now all the way to Netherland. So as the night has gone on and as the day goes on, we hope to be able to get more vehicle access up into those areas. I wish I could say this were confined to one canyon. It would certainly be a much easier event to deal with.
Sheriff, when you were talking about the 172, so that's people that you have names, people you're aware of. How many people are out there that are stranded? Do you have any guess on that?
Again, the issue with this event is we don't know what we don't know. And anything else would be a wild guess, and I'm really not willing to do that. I'm assuming, we've evacuated hundreds of people. I'm assuming we're making a dent in the problem today. I'm assuming we hope to make a very large dent in the problem by the end of the day. But what we're focusing on right now are communities. as you know, the mountains are strewn with single-family residents that are spread apart by some distance. In some cases, there may be one or two houses in an area that are separated from communities by miles. And so part of the difficulty and part of the challenge is getting to all of those. The 400 people that Dan spoke of, those are outside, those are federal resources that have come in. All of our local responders are still fully engaged as well. So we're working in support of each other. And, with an army of folks and an air show, it's our hope to touch every doorknob, within the next few days.
Sheriff, is there an update on the death toll?
It's still at 3, confirmed. Anything else?
Are you, the air show that's going from the municipal airport, is that handling, obviously the area around here, but is it extending? I've heard some of the towns, even out to the plains, the water's, hitting those places too. Is the effort extending out there, or is it mostly here in kind of the more foothill areas?
No, it's both, actually. It's anywhere where there's a need, and those are prioritized, but basically our tasking, if you will, is associated with Boulder County. And even right now, we're doing some work in coordination with the basically my counterparts that are working in Larimer County, because there's actually some folks that are stranded that are actually technically in Larimer County, behind the Larimer County line, but the access to it, and it's easier for us to get there. And so that's the sort of effort that's going on back and forth. But to answer your question specifically, it isn't just strictly the canyons and the foothills and stuff. Any need that's going on, we're prioritizing and trying to meet. And I want to go backwards a little to your question. It gets a little difficult to talk about specifics and understand it, but again, what I call this reconnaissance function, we're trying to put a lot of effort into that as we kind of transition. Right now, we're working really hard on this search and rescue support with the military aircraft, but we recognize the need that the county has to really understand what the full scope of and what's been impacted. And so that's what this reconnaissance function with the civilian aircraft that we're working really hard on is about.
Sheriff, do you have a sense of how many people might still be in Jamestown?
So the last I heard, late last night when I left, was there were approximately 50 people that wanted to stay. We're sending helicopters back up there this morning. I'm sending a deputy sheriff who's a mountain deputy who lives up there and knows those folks to gather them together and talk to them and explain we may not be able to come back for several days and we may not be able to get a road to them for a while. And so we really hope that they understand that we're making our best effort. If they pass on it today, we may not be able to help them tomorrow or the next day. And we certainly can't answer a 911 call if they have trouble. So we're trying to, we're not going to force anyone from their home. We're not trying to be forceful, but we're trying to be very factual and definitive about the consequences of their decision, and we hope that they'll come down.
How concerned you are about the potential for more, bad weather and rain, that could sort of ground your aircraft?
The bad weather and rain does ground the aircraft. It's a concern this afternoon as we look at the forecast and into the next couple days. The cloud ceiling is an issue in that they very well may be able to fly into our airport, but they're flying into 8,000 and 9,000, 10,000 foot elevations, and that's what really causes the issue. So,
Sheriff, are the military vehicles still doing the convoy into lines?
you may be able to answer that,
They're
Dan.
finished. They mostly finished last night, but they are going back in. My understanding, they're going back in for a couple more missions in there that were identified basically by being in there last night.
Are there other places, sir, you intend to send those military vehicles once the lines is accounted?
Right now, the way that's working is I call it on an as-needed basis. Basically, the bottom line, Boulder County receives a call, that's passed to us, we prioritize it, you know, according to what all the other operations we have going on, and then we execute at the time we can. Yesterday, again, was a good day because we're basically the actually it wasn't our team, it was a Boulder County Type 3 team that was working at that time, but they were able to get to everything that was identified to them yesterday, as well as set up a whole bunch of other things that need to happen that were prioritized that we're executing today.
Curious, do you find that people are responding to your request for them to stay off the roads if they're from out of town, stay out of town, that kind of thing?
For the most part, and I think that's probably because the weather's been bad and the roads have been impassable. Our concern right now is it's going to dry out and the rivers are going to recede on the flats and in the cities. And people are going to want to get out. They're going to want to go see what happened. They're going to want to go to the mountains and take pictures of the washouts and that kind of thing, which would be very, very detrimental to our efforts right now. So, you know, we really want to emphasize, we don't want to stop commerce. We don't want to prevent people from going to the grocery store or the gas station and taking care of their business and their family and their homes, particularly down here. But we absolutely do not need them trying to make their way into the mountains right now. That would be dumb, and it would also be very selfish. So I hope that they don't do that.
Sheriff, I won't put you and talk about Jamestown, but can you go for each canyon? Do you know the numbers of each canyon of those unaccounted for and possibly that are left behind in there?
No, I can't begin to do that right now. Ma'am?
You haven't made a final decision about how to evacuate the school children who are after that?
The latest information I have, and that was at about 6 o'clock this morning, was that the county road crew was there. They were evaluating it. They had some confidence that they may be able to drop culverts and fill in that ravine and may be able to actually get buses up there. I have not been updated on that situation. I don't know if you have. But I know they're working hard to get through. It would be a lot safer, more convenient to load the kids in the bus than it would load them on a helicopter and separate them from folks. So I think that's the hope, and I think if that doesn't work, we'll chopper them out. So. You know, I don't have the details on that. We have a lot of amazing people working on all those details. We've been using Niwot High School as a shelter and a reunification area, and I'm assuming that's probably where they would go. Niwot High School, the St. Vrain Valley School District's been amazing in their cooperation. The Life Bridge Church up on Highway 66, open and operational with dozens of volunteers and blankets and food and stuff within 30 minutes of a phone call. Just incredible amount of community support occurring right now. So I think what I'd like to do to move it on is introduce County Commissioner Cindy Domenico. She can talk about the county's efforts and what we're beginning to look at and what we're beginning to face in the form of recovery, which is going to be a monster. So, Cindy.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Domenico. I'm one of the County Board of Commissioners, and I want to also speak on behalf of my colleagues Deb Gardner and Elise Jones over here, who are members of the County Board of Commissioners. You know, our sympathies go to everyone who's been impacted by this terrible disaster, and I especially this morning want to thank our partners as we've worked through this massive emergency situation that we have here in Boulder County and actually across the state of Colorado, especially in the Front Range. Before I start down the list of our folks at the federal level, I want to begin first and foremost with our Sheriff Joe Pelle. Joe is absolutely amazing, as you all know, and I wanted to share with you that I received a call from him at about 12:16 a.m. on Thursday morning that kicked off a whole series of things, and to let you know that we have an emergency operations center here in Boulder County shared by the city and the county, staffed by city and county staff members, that has been up and running since before that phone call, actually since 9 o'clock, I believe, on Wednesday night, handling the calls coming in from the public as well as coordinating efforts of all county staff working on this huge operation. We have a tremendous set of people who are making a huge difference in this community on the ground locally. You can't see them, but they're doing it. That includes the sheriff's team, all of the sheriff's deputies and officers out there on the ground, making sure that people are safe. Also, our county transportation team, which is out there working on roads in dangerous situations. Stories about that as well. but making sure that people are safe. You know, we asked for some help from our federal delegation. I want to let you know that we have had help from our Senators Michael Bennett and Mark Udall in helping us achieve a disaster declaration with the President. We want to thank the President for his very, very quick action. This was an expedited disaster declaration. We've had visits from Governor John Hickenlooper, who was here yesterday, saying that he's 1,000% behind the efforts that we're making here to make sure that people are safe and that we move into the recovery phase in the best shape that we can. Lieutenant Governor Joe Garcia was here as well on Thursday and helped us expedite that disaster declaration request. We have also, in addition, incredible partners across the county, University of Colorado, of course the City of Boulder. I want to let you know that the Boulder Valley School District and St. Vrain Valley School District responded immediately. Within 6 hours. There were 60 buses from the school districts here to help send evacuees to the rescue, to the shelters across the county. It was absolutely amazing. And it's, again, the collaborative nature of this countywide community that is making the huge difference here. As the sheriff and the incident commander have said, roads and bridges here are in desperate shape. We have much damage, many, many bridges, many miles of roads. Some will be passable, hopefully, over the next 24 to 36 hours. Some are going to take months. We are in this for the long haul. It's going to be a very long time to get things back to normal. And you know, we will continue to rely on our incredible partners to help us get our feet on the ground. And we can't thank our federal partners enough. The folks from the incident management team, from FEMA and Homeland Security, who've been here from the very beginning to help make sure that people are safe and getting to the right places. Our shelters across the county are incredible, especially LifeBridge. You've seen some of the images of people there, as well as our other partners with the Red Cross and other locations, Bridge House, et cetera. Wanted to let you know, community-wide, that since we know that people are in different places in this emergency, some are being rescued, some are helping to rescue, some are hoping to do something, and we're not through this yet. I think, as was stated by the sheriff, we have potential weather today. We don't know what the rest of the weekend is going to look like. People need to be very careful about where they travel. As Joe said, we want to encourage commerce, but please, please be very careful about going anywhere near the mountains. We need people off the streets to remain safe and to keep our rescue operations moving as they are now. What we're asking also is folks who are working in their homes to remove debris, which we know is the next step that people want to take. Be very careful with where you put the debris as you take it out of your home. We're working on a plan for handling recycling what can be recycled and picking up stuff as we go. But please do not put anything in the streets, because we are still in a rescue mode at this point. We don't know what the weather is going to be later on today. So don't put anything in the street level. If you take things out of your home, keep it in the front yard and sidewalk area. We are also looking at folks interested in making donations. Want to emphasize the very best donation that you can make to this process is a cash donation. And ideally, the best place to give a cash donation is through our United Way and Community Foundation partnership that's been put together by both United Way and the Community Foundation of Boulder, as well as the Community Foundation of Longmont. That website is www.unitedwayfoothills.org/flood relief. The very best thing that you can do is contribute cash to be able to help folks who've been impacted by this flood get back on their feet. Not so much material donations. Those are tougher to get to people. Ideally, it would be cash. That's what makes the very, very most difference to individuals as we're working through this. And we're not through it yet. It's going to be a long haul. We'll have a lot more to tell you as we move further into the recovery efforts. We have a countywide team that's working, meeting again today at noon to talk about what what the recovery process should look like. We'll know more as we work through the weekend, as we move further through the rescue piece toward recovery. And what we'd like to ask everyone is to please have patience with the process. We know you'd like to get out and start making things happen, and you'd love to volunteer, but there will be time for that. It may not quite be yet, so just be very careful as you travel around and hold off on major volunteer efforts until we put out the call for that kind of help. For those of you who might have seen the National Guard airlift yesterday, and it's ongoing now. I don't think I've ever felt the way I did last night when we watched some kids coming in from Pinewood Springs. There were kids that had come in from other locations, of course, during the course of the day, but several of us were at the airport last night and watched those young children and the dogs and the other animals come out with families off those Chinook and Black Hawk helicopters, and it was absolutely incredible. That is exactly what this community is about, that collaboration and cooperation, pulling together to make sure that people are safe. And, you know, we have tremendous resilience here. We proved it coming out of the 4 Mile fire. We'll prove it again as we go into recovery from this disaster. And we want to just say thank you to everyone for their generosity. We'll come back stronger after this storm, stronger in this community, and ready for the future. Thank you. And I would take questions if you have any, or just turn it right over to the City of Boulder PIO team. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Huntley. I'm with the City of Boulder, and I'd like to provide a few updates about city operations today. Obviously, we're keeping a very watchful eye on the weather for tonight and into tomorrow, but at this point in time, we're doing everything we can to take advantage of this lull in terms of the rain. We'll be assessing and addressing damage throughout the city, and also doing what we can to help our neighbors. Many people have talked about collaboration, and we are definitely active partners in that, and trying to share our resources best we can. Our number one priority today in terms of addressing damage is that we are trying to resolve what we believe to be a breach in terms of our wastewater treatment facility. As we reported last night, we have looked at or are dealing with about 300 feet worth of pipe in the area of 61st and Niwot that appears to have been damaged. This is a significant pipeline for us. It handles about 90% of wastewater flow for the City of Boulder, and it flows into Lafayette. We're very fortunate. We've been in conversations with Lafayette, and they are not drawing drinking water from Boulder Creek. They switched to the baseline reservoir, so I want to emphasize that there is no immediate threat to drinking water either in the City of Boulder or in Lafayette. We are, however, asking people in the City of Boulder, and I think this is true for many communities in the county as well, to please limit discretionary water use in terms of laundry and anything that would discharge into our wastewater system until we can get a handle on the situation. We're also asking our industrial customers to do what they can to limit wastewater discharge. This is another reason, yet another reason why we are encouraging people to stay out of the water. There are health issues, there's a lot of debris, you can have rebar, you can have boulders, you can have logs that can cause serious injury. We've been very fortunate in the City of Boulder to have no fatalities reported or serious injuries, and we're certainly hoping to maintain that track record. Some roads are still closed in our community. It's hit or miss. We've got standing water in some areas, as well as much work to be done in terms of evaluating the structural integrity of roads that had standing water on them. We're assisting the Sheriff's Office in making sure that we keep the Boulder Canyon access points open only to emergency vehicles. The road to Flagstaff is also closed. We understand that it's the weekend. We understand that with the sun up and the rain stopped for now, there are people who want to come assess the damage. OSMP facilities, all of our trails and OSMP lands remain closed, and there continue to be very hazardous conditions in those areas. We are encouraging people who need to get around and do basic survival and basic commerce in the city to do so, but we're asking anybody from outside of the city who want to just come in for the weekend, spend a couple of hours here, to please wait. We're asking for patience and cooperation in that regard. We're doing everything we can to open city facilities to the extent that we can. We have 2 recreation centers that are open up today for modified hours. We're also opening our main library. We do still have parking lots and areas around the main library that are underwater or that need to be rehabbed in some way. So we're asking people to use alternate modes of transportation to get to these facilities, particularly the library. But we are doing everything we can to make our community whole and operational again. A couple of different things in terms of the support that we've gotten as a community. We are incredibly grateful for the outpouring of support. We feel very fortunate in the City of Boulder, both in terms of the damage compared to some of our other neighbors, and also to the fact that so many people want to help. As Commissioner Domenico said, we really are recommending cash donations at this point. It is the single most effective way that you can help people. We have a lot of people contacting the city wanting to come in with cleanup efforts, and we are making arrangements to do that once we know that the situation is safe enough to accommodate those volunteer teams. We're in good shape today. We'll be looking ahead tomorrow and assessing where we are tomorrow. We hope that we will not lose too much ground overnight. I'd like to introduce Mayor Matt Applebaum, who can speak a little bit about the amazing cooperation we've gotten from federal and state authorities. And after he's finished, if there are questions you have with regards to the city, he or I can answer them.
Thanks, Sarah. Good morning. So it's obvious that this has been an incredibly challenging and destructive event in the city, and even more so in the county. Something that most of us never thought we would witness. As I've been out looking at many of the hard-hit locations in the city and also in open space and a little bit in the county, what has really struck me is, I've looked at floodplain maps for a very long time, and you see these lines on a map, and they look, very, very sedate and very carefully drawn, and then you actually go out in the community and you see what it looks like to have rivers of water rushing down your streets and into people's houses and into people's basements, and it's quite different, and it's quite astonishing, actually, to see that in Boulder. Now, we've known, of course, for a very long time that Boulder is the most likely place to have a destructive flood in the state of Colorado because of all of our tributary creeks, our location, the density of our population, and we've planned for that for a long time. And I should note that in many places around town, that planning paid off, and you could see places where our drainage way improvements and our removal of buildings and our work on allowing the floodwaters to spread out really did help mitigate some of the damage that otherwise would have been greater. That said, there's clearly going to be significant damage in and around the city that we're going to need to deal with. It was also very heartening to see the number of people out around town helping each other, and frankly the huge number of students up in the hill area along Gregory Canyon Creek in particular, who were out protecting buildings and working with their neighbors and helping to channel the water away from many of the structures, and kudos to them and much appreciation. The other thing that was, of course, unusual about this storm, Sheriff Pelle mentioned it, is we planned for flash floods, thunderstorms. That's what you'd expect to see in this area that affect perhaps one or two of our drainage ways, happen quickly, large amounts of rain. Yes, they're destructive, but a little bit easier to deal with. What is difficult to plan for is something of this magnitude that goes on for a couple of days and affects every single drainage way north to south in the entire city. And of course much worse in the county where the area is so much greater. But I certainly never expected to see Bear Creek at 100-year or more flood stage in the south part of Boulder at the same time when 4 Mile Creek is at 100-year or more flood stage at the north end of Boulder in the same event. That was not something that the meteorologists would have said was a very likely occurrence, and of course this probably is a 1 in 1,000 year or even less likely storm at this point, both in the terms of the amount of rainfall and its duration and the widespread nature of it. So I have a few thanks as well, and then a couple of other remarks. Almost immediately I was contacted by the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs and also by Senator Mark Udall and by Senator Bennett's office, and we really appreciate all the help they've provided and their willingness to work with us, and the rapidness of the federal response has been just remarkable, as others have mentioned. I'd also like to thank the university for canceling the football game that was scheduled for today. I know that's a difficult decision, but as others have mentioned, we do not need people coming to Boulder at this point. We certainly didn't need 30,000 people descending on us. It just would not have been safe. It would not have been manageable. We're clearly in cleanup mode. There's more bad weather coming in, at least predicted for tonight, and so that
is of great help to us that the university took that step, and we very much appreciate it. A few other thoughts. One on open space. Sarah mentioned this. I did get out and looked at some open space areas. All of us have beloved areas in open space, and Boulder being Boulder, I'm sure people are really eager to get out there again. Not only is the open space closed, officially closed, but I would strongly recommend to people that they stay away. It is dangerous. Places that I've known and loved for 30 years are gone. They are truly unsafe. Plus, you could be adding more damage to an area that's already severely damaged, and we need to be able to get in there and make repairs and fix things up, and people using the trail systems and the open space as much as they really want to will just make it all the more difficult for us to make those fixes. A couple of last thoughts. Again, we really appreciate all the volunteer efforts that people have put in, all the folks who have been helping each other, all the great assistance we've gotten from the federal government, the school district, and the university. As has been noted, at this point, volunteers can help the most by helping their neighbors and by contributing money. I am sure in the not too distant future, as we work on our efforts at repairing and rebuilding, that we'll have opportunities for volunteers to help us both in the city and no doubt on our open spaces, and we would appreciate that help. And we very much stand with Boulder County in this. The cooperation has been extraordinary. From minute one, the county and the city have worked together, but we recognize that the devastation in the county is really extraordinary beyond what has happened in the city. In the county, in the mountain areas, especially Lyons and Jamestown and others, and anything we can do to help, we stand ready to help. So just a big thanks to all the citizens of Boulder for their cooperation. We ask for your continuing patience. This is going to be a long and probably somewhat slow cleanup and recovery period, both personal houses that need to be cleaned out and driveways and basements, but also the city infrastructure. So please be patient with us. Please help us out. Please obey our requests as best you can, and we do expect to fully recover and have a great city again in the not too distant future. Thanks. And we'll take any questions you have on any of the city issues.
We were up by Chautauqua this morning, and we talked about the open space. We saw a lot of people out kind of hiking up there. We talked about fines and things like that.
Well, as far as I know, it is, all of open space is closed. I don't know that we're going to be fining people necessarily, but we would really encourage people to obey the rules. I don't know if, Sarah, you might know if we have ranger presence up there, but we can't cover the immense open space system. I mean, I was up in Chautauqua area yesterday on the enchanted, what is left of the bottom of the enchanted Mesa Trail, which isn't much. And it is just incredibly dangerous to be up there. And the last thing we need is folks walking up there if more rain falls and needing to rescue people who may be injured. Plus, you know, as I noted, and although people don't mean to do this, we understand it, they're damaging an already damaged system. And it's just going to make it all the more difficult and all the more expensive for us to come back in and repair the damaged trails. So for people, citizens of Boulder, who certainly love their open space, we get it, and we understand why they want to be out there. You know, if you want repairs to be made, if you want the system to return to its natural state, if you want to protect the ecosystems, the fragile ecosystems up there, we just really plead with you to stay off the open space for now.
We do have rangers working today. However, we would like their primary focus to be on assessing damage, clearing debris, and helping us get the system up and running again. If we have to provide enforcement support, we will do so. We're really looking for voluntary compliance at this point. Okay, seeing no other questions, I know Bronson Hilliard is here from CU with a couple of brief remarks.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick updates from the university this morning. The campus remains closed under the order of the chancellor. It'll stay closed today. We're going to make a decision on tomorrow. On weekends, there are faculty and staff who work at the university doing research and academic work. So by closed, we mean it's closed to those folks and to the general public. The chancellor and his cabinet will be meeting throughout the weekend to assess the damage reports they've been receiving from our facilities management people. Again, what we've seen is a lot of minor flooding damage in lower levels of basements and buildings. We have some more severe damage in a couple of residence halls. In Reed, Crossman, and Cockrell halls, we've evacuated 21 students earlier in the week. Those students remain housed in other housing units on the campus, student housing units on the campus. We began the process last night of moving 350 graduate students and their families back into graduate and family housing adjacent to Boulder Creek. They had been evacuated since the early hours of the emergency. They're back in. They've got power. On a nice note, later today at 1 o'clock in the club level of Folsom Field, they're going to be served meals by our student athletes. And our student athletes later today are also going to be helping them assist with cleanup in the family housing area. These are football, basketball players, track and field, representatives from all of our 16 sports at the university will be assisting in these efforts. And so we're very pleased about that. We're going to make a decision on reopening the campus fully beginning on Monday. That discussion is going on now based on the evaluation we get from the damage. But we want to reemphasize that we've messaged to our students about staying away from water-laden areas and from the creek. We're also, I want to send along from the Chancellor DeStefano, from President Benson and the Board of Regents, a sincere thanks to our friends and partners in the City of Boulder and the county for the absolutely heroic efforts that they've been engaged in to secure the community and respond to this devastating flood, as well as our own police department who's been partnering with them. Those police will also be served meals by our student athletes today. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I'm not sure if this has been asked, and I'm not sure if you really even know, but as far as any students, are there any students that are unaccounted for at this time?
Not that we know of. We had one student that was unaccounted for earlier in the week, and that person was located and is safe and sound. So we haven't had any indications from parents or that any of our students are missing or unaccounted for at this moment. That would be our undergraduate students. Graduate students we think are okay. We haven't had any reports on them either. And naturally, as these unaccounted reports become confirmed and we start to locate people through the city and county efforts, we'll try to match to see if any of those people are affiliates of the university. But right now, our sense is that everybody's accounted for. Thank you all.